Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day 2 of the International Conference of Research on Language Education, IROL 2021. I am Associate Professor Dr. Geraldine, and I'll be your moderator for this keynote session. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a semi-live presentation where the pre-recorded presentation will be played and is followed by a live Q&A session. If you do have any questions for the speaker, please type your questions in the chat box. Do provide your full name and affiliation along with your question. With us this morning, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Ahmad Mazli bin Muhammad. Professor Dr. Ahmad Mazli bin Muhammad, the former Dean of Akademi Pengajian Bahasa, is a Professor of English Language at Akademi Pengajian Bahasa, University Technology Mara, Shah Alam campus. He obtained his Master's in Curriculum and Teaching at Michigan State University and his PhD in Assessment and Evaluation at University Kebangsaan, Malaysia. He has been with UITM for 32 years, and his vast experience includes teaching and learning, curriculum design, and assessment. His current interest includes curriculum evaluation as well as alignment of outcomes to assessments. In addition, he is helping young content lecturers to improve their English communication in classroom skills. Professor Dr. Mazli is also involved in research and innovation initiatives. He has led and won several medals at the International Invention, Innovation and Design Exposition, IDEX. Currently, he is supervising 6 PhD students and engaging them in journal writing activities. His tagline was and is taking APB to the next level. Without further delay, let us listen to Prof. Dr. Ahmad Mazli.
Hello, my name is Mazli. I'm from University Technology Mara, UITM. Welcome to IROL 2021. And also I bid a warm welcome to my fellow keynote speakers from Australia and other parts of the world. And welcome to participants from Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and one from Japan. Let's begin. The title of my keynote speech is Transitional Dynamics of Modern Languages and Applied Language Studies at a Crossroad. Now let's look at the content. I shall begin with painting the recent past, and then followed by the crossroad, and then followed by where are we heading, and then emerging trends, and finally I'll be talking about future research. So that will be the framework of my keynote speech. Let's begin with the recent past. Not long ago, we still remember on the 18th of March, we had the first movement control order from the Malaysian government, and that signified the very first day of COVID-19 in Malaysia. So as we move forward for language education, the current ecosystem dictates the needs of the language use. So this recent year, between March 2020 and March 2021, marked the first anniversary of COVID-19 pandemic. Higher education institutions and the language education industry, not only in Malaysia, but all over the world, have provided platforms for webinars and created many publications, modules that address the changing ecosystem. And on top of that, above all, it has brought a tsunami of changes to the landscape of language education for both modern language courses and applied language studies. So before I move on, I would like to introduce to you set up the scenario of language education at University Technology Mara. I shall begin by introducing the 3 language departments that we have here. The first one is Department of English Language and Linguistics, and that's the biggest department. We have about, here in Shah Alam campus, about 200 over lecturers. Yeah? And then the second biggest department is Language of Asian and European Languages. So I believe that some of you have spoken to some of the participants, and some of us are teaching Japanese, teaching Korean, teaching Mandarin, teaching Arabic, and so on and so forth. Yeah? And the third department is the Department of Malay Studies. And this happens to be the smallest department in Academy of Language Studies. By the way, I forgot to introduce that I am from the faculty, or here we don't call faculty, but it is Academy of Language Studies, or in Malay or Bahasa Melayu, the national language, it is called Academy Pengajian Bahasa. And these 3 departments offer 9 modern languages. Yeah? For your information, last semester in the March to July 2020 semester, we had about 76,000 enrollment for the various modern language courses. And English, if you look there in red, is a top, crimson on the top left-hand corner. That's it offers 10 courses, both at the proficiency and the ESP level, ESP/EAP and so on. And it has the highest number of enrollment. And the second highest number of enrollment happens to be for the Mandarin courses. There are 3 courses altogether. Yeah? So we have quite a number of Mandarin lecturers all over Malaysia, the 35 campuses. Yeah? And followed by number 3, Arabic and Japanese, and so on and so forth. And those languages represent the 9 modern languages. Let's look at the academic courses that we offer at APB. Until now, from 2006 until now, we have offered 9 applied language studies programs, right from the diploma to the degree and the postgraduate level. Now, the name of the diploma academic program, the name of the academic program at the diploma level is English for Professional Communication, or LG120. And here I have 4 of the lecturers for this program here in UITM campus. They are actually also the committee to do this recording. And then we move on to the degree program. There are 4 academic programs altogether, as you can see there. Applied Language Studies, honors in the first one, English for Professional Communication, the second one, Malay for Professional Communication, the third one, Arabic for Professional Communication, and the final one is English for Intercultural Communication. Now that we have pandemic-19, so it's a blessing in disguise. This intercultural communication is vital. Yeah? And finally, the postgraduate level, we offer Masters in Professional Communication, Masters in Language Studies, Masters in Applied Language Studies, and as well as PhD in Applied Language Studies. And currently, I think we have between 160 to 200 students at the postgraduate level. So that's the introduction of the setup that we have here at Academy Pengajian Bahasa at the UITM campus. And also for the diploma level, we offer diploma at 2 branch campuses, namely the Malacca campus, and the other one is Johor campus, and we are still expanding. And hopefully by end of this year or next year, early next year, we are going to offer 2 more new academic programs. Moving on. Now let's look at the Crossroad. Now that we have painted the scenario, what UITM or APB is all about, and let's look at the crossroad of what we have to face, or what we have faced for the last 1 year recently. Now I shall begin with painting the English language roadmap before pandemic happened. Yeah? It is very important that we look at the past to actually go to the future. So here the English language roadmap was designed to cater between 2015 to 2025. So at that particular time, nobody had anticipated COVID-19. So the plan was rolled out, the frameworks, and how it is going to be implemented. So now, with this COVID-19, with the new normal, we have to revisit what the English language roadmap is all about and make fine-tunings and modifications so that it is more meaningful, so that the challenges that we face now will be captured. Yeah? So that's the roadmap. And after that, a few years after that, 2015, I think the very next year, the Ministry of Higher Education actually espoused flexible education. Now, what is it? And there are 10 tenets actually in that strategic plan, and 2 of them actually focused on flexible education and technology. So in a way we can say that in 2016, although we did not anticipate COVID-19, but the Ministry of Higher Education was already gearing up towards, something along the lines of what happens when, everything has to be online. So good enough, yeah. So we already have that initiation and the beginning of flexible education and technology. If you can see there on the right hand side, the top 2 things there, one in blue, flexible education, and right below it is technology. So that's the second. And the third one that we have to consider, since now we are at the crossroad, is what UITM or this university has embarked on, and it is called Education 5.0. And what is Education 5.0 about? It says here, Education 5.0 at UITM embraces the elements of Education 4.0 with an emphasis on values and future progressive thinking. Within the Education 5.0 at UITM context, instilling values and principles in the learning ecosystem is imperative. Imbuing adab and amanah, or in English, trust. Adab is more along the line of ethics, adab. Yeah? In the different facets of the educational realm is vital, whereas technology acts as enablers, scaffolds, supports, and affordances. And this is a human-driven approach. So the human touch must be there. So I think the timing is just right. In 2019, 2 years before, or maybe 1.5 years before COVID came, we are already tabling out our plans. Yeah, that has technology and also the human values to complement or supplement the values as the core, but technology as the complement or the support element. Yeah. Now, we do have our challenge as well in 2019, 2020, before COVID came. Yeah. COVID came in 2020, right? It was in March. So it's actually, this one is 1 year before COVID came. We had our challenges just like any universities in the whole world or in the schools and colleges. Yeah? We do have problems with infrastructure and infrastructure at different levels, at different propensity, but somehow we managed to solve it along the way. And we are still doing fine-tunings along the way. And I think everybody knows that we are all about, challenges are all about low speed and limited coverage of internet access and Wi-Fi. But now the government will be introducing 5G, has introduced, and will actually spread throughout the country. And the other one in red, if you look at the arrows on the left side, digital divide. So it cannot be denied that we are not all the same in terms of socio-economic background. Some of us come from low income, middle income, and also some from good families. So we try to sort of balance those eventually and give equal opportunities to our students. Moving on. So those are the challenges that we face at the crossroad. The challenges that we face, that we have to look at, we have to analyze, and then have to implement and suggest on how to overcome the problems and so on. Now let's look at where are we heading in language education. So now that just now I presented the roadmap, English roadmap, between 2015 and 2025, and then what Ministry of Higher Education espoused with technology and so on. Now, where are we heading in terms of, if we are talking about UITM, we are talking about the TNL, Teaching and Learning of Modern Languages, the 9 modern languages I presented to you just now. And in terms of the academic programs, the 9 academic programs that I presented to you just now. So where are we heading in terms of both modern languages? How best to teach and learn? How best? So like I mentioned just now, number 1, the integrating of purposeful technology is very important, whether we like it or not. Whether some of us are digital immigrants and some of us are digital natives. Whether we like it or not, we have to move from being an immigrant to being a native. Somewhere along the line, it doesn't matter, but we need to make that effort. And number 2, delivering content and engaging with students. Now, it is very important that we think about this when we do future research later, because engaging with students face-to-face is totally a different ball game, compared to engaging with students online. Now, if you look at 2A there, are the platforms suitable? B, is there enough effort to sustain students' attention? I still remember in the first semester, that was in the March semester of doing online ODL. Somehow at the back of our minds, at the back of my mind, and I represent others as well, we are all asking, are the students there? Are they listening to us? Are they sort of engaged with what we say? Do they respond to us? And so on and so forth. So those are things that during the first semester, but now I think both the academics, the lecturers, and the students, we have got the hang of it, and then we move on. C, does knowledge shared end in meaningful learning? That's very important. That is very important. We can teach and teach and teach, but at the end of the day, is it meaningful for the students to move on? And then D, is fine-tuning of course learning outcomes necessary? Of course, by now I think all of you will agree that the CLO will have to be revisited. And finally, number 3, developing an online language learning ecosystem, because prior to COVID-19, the language ecosystem was there on campus. Students are physically on campus, and we provide them with platforms to be part of activities in which they are able to use the language. But now, how so? So we need to think about it. To move future, we need to think about how we can create this online language learning ecosystem. Moving on. Now, I mentioned just now the campus experience prior to COVID-19. You can see here, students are happy, smiling. Yeah, they have their peers with them, and they're constantly engaging with the peers and with their lecturers as well. Overseas experience, they were able to do internship overseas. They were able to visit universities as ambassadors. They were able to become student exchange students, yeah, in Indonesia and other parts of the world, yeah, and they were able to do capacity building overseas to ensure that they develop the confidence, they develop that communication skills, which is vital for workplace later on. Yeah. So here we have capacity building, but how so can we do online? Yeah. And then we have this capacity building. An example here, Anis Nadia from ABB UITM Shah Alam. I'll show you this video of how happy she was and what kind of activities that she did in Tsukuba, University of Tsukuba, Japan. So watch the video.
Assalamualaikum and konnichiwa. I am Anis Nadia, a student of Academy Pengajian Bahasa in UITM Shah Alam. Currently, I am in University of Tsukuba, Japan for a program called Tag AIM Student Forum for 1 week. So I just wanted to say that so far it has been an eye-opening experience because I get to meet other international students around the world. I do hope that after this, more and more UITM students will volunteer to join international programs in the years ahead. Bye!
Welcome to Scuba.
Let's move on to the emerging trends. What's happening for the past 1 year after COVID-19 came? So we could see actually lots of trends coming up. Trends in higher education. The first one, of course, it goes without saying, conducting webinars and providing platforms for knowledge sharing. And it's a blessing in disguise. Now we can attend webinars with people from Australia, from America, from Brazil, from China, yeah, from India, at the same time without flying to the respective countries. So it's a blessing. So the trends in higher education, because everybody is on the same page and we want to progress equally, so therefore we share knowledge. Yeah. And number 2, intensifying online collaborations amongst MOU and MOA partners. Now, the conventional way of doing this collaborations before COVID-19 was actually to go visit those universities, flying to Indonesia, flying to Philippines, and so on and so forth. Now, with just a click of a button, then we can have discussions, we can have meetings with our counterparts in the different, countries. And by now, I think we have seen lots of conferences, and this is one good example. Yeah? The conference on iRole, research on language education, and so on. Number 3, engaging in teaching and learning concerns of both lecturers and students. Now, this is the trend that we cannot deny. The rights of the lecturers, the rights of the students. Like I mentioned before, we are not all from the same socioeconomic background. So this is something that we can actually visit, analyze, and see how this relates to language education, or how this affects the teaching and learning in language education. Number 4, creating crash courses for digital immigrants. I cannot say more about this. I'm part of that, and I attended many crash courses specifically for middle of the road kind of digital immigrants like me. Number 5, using more visuals and teaching aids in TNL, you name it, apps. Now we have Mentimeter, we have all sorts of apps being used to ensure that it can actually supplement your teaching and learning, and in return the engagement with the students can be heightened. Infographics, I will not be surprised if in the near future master's and PhD thesis will be presented using just infographics, and probably in the next 10 years the thesis of PhD and master candidates will be just pages of maybe 10 to 15 pages of infographics, which will have links to the data, to the references, to everything. So probably, I don't know, I'm just saying it now, so probably it will happen in the future. Videos, graphs, pictures, graphics, tables, etc. Number 6, developing innovations and inventions. Yes, this is the time. This is the right time to think about what can we do better. How can we do better? How can we deliver, teach better to the students? So those are the emerging trends in higher education. And I shall share with you one example here. A course I mentioned just now, number 2, courses, mushroom all over. An example of a course for academics at Michigan State University. And you can see here the objectives of that course. Identify pandemic-induced failures, wins, lessons learned, and opportunities. Number 2, explore novel and alternative pedagogical approaches, models, and modalities. Number 3, interpret and apply transformative technology integration, principles, models, and theories. Number 4, evaluate current practices in light of potential impact of transformative approaches. Number 5, identify barriers and challenges to change and propose possible solutions. Number 6, produce short, medium, and long-term plans for transformative technology integration. And finally, number 7, develop a network of like-minded peers for ongoing sharing and support. So if you share this comes from Michigan State University, but if you share them with every academic in the whole world, probably everyone is talking about the same thing. So we are on the same page. Yeah? It used to be that some countries are more advanced than others, but now we are thrown into a condition that we are all on the same page. And this is a good opportunity for us to collaborate, to work together. The Western world and the Eastern world together, infusing our knowledge, collaborating, and to ensure that what is most important, meaningful learning takes place in language education. And finally, we have come to the last part of this presentation, the future research. So after presenting all these things, these scenarios, so what are some of the things that we can do in the future? So I have placed here 5 possible research areas that we can think about. With ODL, or Open and Distance Learning, as the way forward, democratization of education quality is necessary. So some suggestions for future research. The first one, the pragmatics, syntax and semantics for language of respect and language of trust. I believe when we first started ODL, everybody was questioning, will we get the trust? Will we get the respect from the students? And how we as academics can actually show the trust and the respect first before we get in return. So this area of research, I believe, is so important as we move forward into the 21st century, because people have very limited time or limited platforms to talk to one another face to face. And we cannot, for the life of me, actually see the body language, all those nuances of the language that we speak, that now we can actually see when we meet people in person. But now we meet people online. So to me, the pragmatics, the syntax, the semantics of language and respect and language of trust is very important, not just for language education, but what they can bring beyond language education into the workplace. Because now trust and respect is very utmost important in the workplace. Second, now when I talk about just now developing the environment, the ecosystem, now this is an area that we can develop, and it is called e-portfolio repository for learning and employability, resume. So now that everybody is online, this is the right time for us to actually establish this e-portfolio repository for learning for the students. Now everybody now works from clouds. We have storage from clouds, and normally universities provide storage for both academics and students. And this is the right time to establish. I'll show you an example afterwards of what we already started in probably UITM, and it came from the Ministry of Higher Education. Number 3, the transboundary and cross-cultural online language development. Now we know that students are free to communicate with their counterparts from other universities, but how effective are they? How meaningful are they? And those questions actually we need to address in the form of research. And of course, when we talk about cross-cultural, it is so important to take into the consideration of the differences in the culture presented online. Yeah. Number 4, the ODL Collaborative Language Teaching and Learning for Academics. Recently, UITM has embarked on that. Yeah, there are several webinars were presented, and I think most of us have attended that. And this is a good start. Yeah, a good start for all of us to be on this together. And finally, I mentioned just now, number 5, integration of purposeful technology into teaching and learning. Some of us question, are we going to go back to the classes face to face? The answer is, it is so uncertain. And this COVID-19, the existence is so, we don't know until when. Yeah. So in view of that, integration of purposeful technology in teaching and learning is vital. And these are some of the examples that I mentioned just now in creating the ecosystem for the students, and this is online. So based on the book that was published in late 2019, but it is already addressing the online thing. It is called A Handbook for Learning English and Beyond, a holistic learning environment in higher education. And in chapter 4 of the book, it presents the documenting evidence of learning and reflection by the students. So the content overview, it is about portfolio compilations of achievement, reflecting on learning, and then the implementation process. So I'm suggesting here it should be actually put on the next level by introducing that every single student right from year 1 should establish an e-portfolio for language learning, and also with that another one for an e-portfolio resume for employment later on at the end of the 3rd year. So that's what the Ministry of Higher Education has started on. And this is an example of what the students can actually do. Yeah, Razif Razak. So his own website that has Instagram and also Facebook, where any future employer can actually click on this and then just look at his documents of what he has done and his levels of English or Korean or Japanese for that matter. And it is so easy. Yeah. So what future employers can do is to call the person and validate during interviews, that's all. Yeah. And this is the way to go. And this is the example of the collaborative group just now I mentioned. UITM has already embarked on this. And I think last week, the whole entire of last week, there were a series of webinars that introduced all the different groups of collaborative groups, collaboration. And that comes to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I hope this presentation or this session has given you enough or has presented you a plethora of research areas that you can research on and have a good conference, a fruitful conference. Thank you again.
Thank you, Prof. Dr. MAZLI, for sharing with us an insightful presentation. Let us now welcome Prof. Dr. MAZLI for the Q&A session. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for joining us today. I'm positive you're staying healthy and safe.
Thank you,
now,
Geraldine.
I'll read a question that was posted earlier. And the question is, in relation to the current practice of online learning, what is your view on summative and assessments, especially the worries that formative students cheat and plagiarize in their work, or test? Can you suggest some alternative assessments? This is a question from Puan Sumarni, KPP of UITM Melaka. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you, Geraldine. Good morning. It's a pleasant to see. It's good to see you again, Dr. Geraldine. Now, the question from Puan Sumarni regarding the alternative assessment, having to actually do the summative. Can you repeat the statement about that summative? What was the issue again, Dr. Geraldine?
The whole question. Okay, in relation to the current practice of online learning, what is your view on summative and assessments, especially the worries that formative, the students will cheat and plagiarize in their work or in their test? Can you suggest some alternative assessments?
Yeah, I think the question revolves around plagiarism. Now, like I mentioned just now, the trust and also respect is very important, a very important aspect of online learning. And I strongly feel that the students will have to be accountable for their own actions. So, meaning we cannot do without giving total trust on them. Now, they have to learn the repercussions of what they did. And plagiarism is one of the things that they're enticed because possibility that they're doing a last minute job or something along that line. But over time, I strongly believe with this summative, I would say, alternative assessment for summative assessment, we somehow have to face it. And then it is actually the change of the mindset over time. Now, we cannot see that probably in the first few semesters, but over time, once the students get the hang of the rules and regulations, and that they have to be accountable for their own actions, most of the students, I believe, will follow suit. And then I strongly believe that, giving them writing tests or writing assignments, which some of the students, minority of students, will fall into plagiarism. There are no two ways about it. We have to do it. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Prof. I guess, yes, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, because being OTL
Yes,
and all,
agree.
as lecturers and academicians, we have to do that. Yeah. So just a comment here, like for us academicians, I saw in one of your slides that developing a network of like-minded peers for ongoing sharing and support seems a good thing. Yeah, all of us will definitely like doing that as well. Yeah.
Very true.
Any other questions? Okay, there's one more question. What can institutions of higher learning do to support language lecturers to embrace, as you have mentioned, the tsunami change from the traditional face-to-face classes to online learning?
The question is what?
Again, what can institutions of higher learning do to support language lecturers to embrace the tsunami change from the traditional face-to-face classes to online learning?
Very good question, actually. Coming from, who's the name of the person who gave the question, Dr. Geraldine?
The question is from me, Prof.
Okay, good question, Dr. Geraldine. Yes, I do believe that the institutions of higher learning all over the world will have to give full support. That is one. And how to give the full support? Somehow they need to understand us. They need to understand what language education is about. And they need to understand us in terms of translatable things like timetable, or how much work or assignments that we have to mark, or we have to go. And those are for the aspects of academics. But how about students? somehow the university will have to embark on a longitudinal study as well on how the modern language courses is being taught. Is it efficient? Is it effective? Because you know that the bottom line about language teaching language is at the end of the day, the students will have to do the practicing, the talking, using of the language, without which they will go back to square one. Yeah. And I always believe in language education. I give you a very easy analogy, foreign workers who come to Malaysia and work in Malaysia, they're able to understand our language. Why? Because they practically use our language every day. And another example is the boatmen of Taman Negara, the national park in Pahang. They are not school until university level. Yeah, they are school leavers. They don't go to school. But at the end of the day, because they work as boatmen from 18 years old right to 30 years old, and then they mingle with German people, people from Australia, and their language is perfect. Spoken language is perfect. So, likewise, in the academic setting, the bottom line is no matter how we teach, no matter how much what we teach and all that, the students will have to be take take it to the next level by practicing it. And that's the reason why I mentioned just now, we in turn will have to provide institutions of higher learning like APB, will have to provide the platform in which they can be part of that activity. So maybe your question just now, how the institutions can make it better. So for the students to provide enough platform for them, and for the academics, of course, to make sure that they don't become, over stressed and all that with so many things, they need to also think about our welfare, whether how much we can cope, how things can be better in terms of teaching hours, in terms of the things that we mark along the way, yeah, things like that. That is how I can actually say or answer the question, Dr. Geraldine. I hope that's okay.
Okay, I agree with you totally there, Prof. Mazli. Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Dr. Mazli, for answering all the questions. I would like to once again thank Prof. Dr. Mazli for joining us this morning and for sharing with us his presentation. I would also like to thank all of you, our audience, for attending and participating in this session and for being a wonderful audience. On behalf of the organizing committee of iRoll 2021, I would like to invite all of you to join us for the next keynote session that is scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine.
Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the International Conference of Research on Language Education, IROL 2021. My name is Muhammad Nur Afandi, and I will be your moderator for this keynote session. Ladies and gentlemen, as this session is a semi-live presentation where a pre-recorded presentation of the speech will be played, so I hope all of you will switch off your mic and your camera. The question and answer session will be conducted live after the pre-recorded presentation. So if you have any question for our speaker later, what you can do is type your question in the chat box. Provide your full name and affiliation along with your question. However, due to limited time, only selected question will be highlighted and forwarded to the speaker directly. Again, kind advice before we begin, kindly mute your devices to avoid any distractions. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by introducing our speaker for this session. In fact, we are honored to have Dr. WIDHIYANTO all the way from Semerang, Indonesia to join us online. Dr. WIDHIYANTO received his PhD education in 2017 from the University of Wollongong, Australia. His thesis investigated the nature of argumentation in undergraduate thesis of a non-background speakers of English and in an English department at an Indonesian university, alongside an honours thesis written by a high-attaining Australian student in an Australian university. He found that the two student texts were similar at micro level, but differed significantly in how they were structured at the meso level, and further at the micro level, particularly with respect to how writers position themselves with respect to other voices in the field. These findings have implication for the teaching of academic genre in EFL context. Dr. Widi now is the head of the English department at Semarang State University, Indonesia. Although the role has made him busy with administration work, he is still actively involved in research with his staff as they are developing research-based approaches to academic writing programs. He has published 8 journal articles in 2009 and 2020, and now he is working towards future research collaborations with other universities abroad. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. WIDHIYANTO with his speech entitled Negotiating Attitude in Academic Texts.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be with you all in this very special occasion, the International Conference of Research on Language Education, IROL 2021. This conference has been attracting me since the beginning, as the theme of the conference is so closely related to my research interest, that is, engaging in change, empowering linguistic, literature, and language. And in this special occasion, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the Rector of University Technology Muara, Malacca, for this cooperation, Dean of Academy Pengajian Bahasa, and all the committee, especially to Dr. Kuldip Kaur Mahtir bin Singh, sorry for mispronouncing, the chairperson of IROL 2021, and Dr. Muhammad Nur Afandi bin Ibrahim, who contacted me for the first time, offering me to be one of the speakers. In this very special occasion, I'd like to propose my talk entitled Negotiating Attitude in Academic Text. My interest in research has been on the academic writing practices. I have done several studies, especially on the way student writers construct their argument in academic text. This interest has been motivated by some consideration that academic writing is the heart of higher education. In this case, academic writing has a central role in higher education, that it is embedded in all effort that university do as something like education, research, and community service. However, in the Indonesian EFL context, academic writing has been overlooked in all levels of education. This is based on Alpha 2021. And this left students lack of ability and skill to write proper academic text. So this is the case of around 2010 or maybe too recently, that we are still having problems in training students to be a good academic writer. One of the case that AFL students face is that they got difficulty in bringing in other in their academic text. In this case, to make other voice and other stance within one writing is so difficult. Mostly students are just quote somebody to support his or her own opinion or his or her own argument. This is this bringing in other in the academic text is called academic text, academic engagement. I mean, in SFL context. Yeah, textual engagement is the effort of the writer in engaging with other and other texts, but establishing their own presence in their own text. So there is a kind of negotiation how other voice, other ideas is made, is merged and is negotiated with the writer's own ideas and stance. The paper is concerned to make explicit the role of language plays in realizing the negotiation of meaning in academic text. So this is an area of interpersonal meaning, the small area in academic writing, in the sense that still have a crucial role in the development of sound argument. The paper focused on seeing the way academic writers engage with others in his or her text by employing evaluative language. The term evaluative language refers to the language used for expressing, for evaluating, for analyzing interpersonal meaning. The aims of this paper is to bring a close linguistic analysis of the academic text into the relationship with the wider social and cultural context, particularly on the area of interpersonal interact evaluation. Yeah. So in the paradigm that I follow, that language is meaningful in the context. A student writer can communicate, can engage, can negotiate their meaning if they know the context of culture and the context of situation. Yeah. In this case, I employ operational system, a branch of operational systemic functional linguistics that provide comprehensive tools for the analysis of interpersonal meaning, especially in the use of evaluative language. This is based on the work by Martin and White and Martin and Rose. Yeah. This discussion is led by these following questions. That is, how does appraisal system function within the discourse on academic writing? So we try to find how the appraisal resources the chunk of language in the academic text which may invoke interpersonal meaning. And then the second one, how are the framework of appraisal system employed to investigate the relations of the negotiation grammatically and lexically. So this will deal with how meaning is realized in wording, in grammar, and in lexicon, which is called lexicogrammar. And the pedagogical question is, how do teachers train students to utilize the appraisal system, this new theory, in the development and in the analysis of academic text? Okay, as I said that this paper is motivated by the linguistic paradigm of SFL. Yeah, this is based on the work of Michael Halliday, especially in 1960s up to the well-known one is 1978, that language is considered as resource for making meaning. So in the context of developing academic writing, language is used to realize the negotiation of meaning within the writer and the readers. Yeah, and this is also language is also considered as social semiotic. That language is a means for encoding meaning, that the meaning is outside the language itself. Yeah. Okay. In this case, meaning is constructed in the communication through the process of negotiation. So negotiation of the choice in the language among the other possible choices available. That is the term of related to the term of social semiotics. So the system of choice. Yeah. The negotiation relates to the bargaining of ideas and stance or position between those who are involved in the development of the text. In the spoken, that is the speaker and the writer, and in the written is the writer and the reader. Okay, and then the whole communication process. This is the negotiation of meaning. The process of the collaboration between the interaction is a process which is called communication, is meant to develop a text unit of meaning, either spoken or written. Yeah. And then in academic writing, especially in the development of text, and especially in the previous one that we discussed, it, dealing with constructing argument, that is construct of sound argument. So the use of language is especially deal with evaluating others' ideas and other stance or other position. Yeah. And then, as I said, and then in this paper, I use a appraisal system, as I mentioned previously, that this system, this theory, provide a comprehensive tool for evaluating. For evaluation and stance analysis, especially. Yeah. In this case, appraisal is organized in 3 interacting domains, that is attitude, engagement, and graduation. This is based on Martin 2005. Yeah. Attitude is concerned with our feeling, including the emotional reaction, the judgment of behavior, and evaluating of things. So this is the core of appraisal system, the heart of appraisal system, that all the other system, that the system of engagement, system of graduation, is sourced by, is linked to the attitude. Yeah. And then the second one is engagement. So engagement can be said to be the effect of the use of attitude, or the value of attitude, or the resource of attitude in the academic text. And it deals with the effect of the use of this language in the negotiation of meaning between the reader and the writer, between the speaker and the listener. And then the graduation deals with the scaling up and down of the value of the interpersonal meaning. Okay. And then people have done studies in by employing appraisal theory to analyze especially academic text. The one is something like Hood, who did compare academic texts written by published writer and student writer. And then Lee, who deals with the effective language, effective use of language in by the people in the East Asia. And then Nakamura has done research on the use of appraisal system in developing the IELTS test. And then Padmanabhan in 2011 did the research on how 3 students from Middle East especially develop their textual engagement. Yeah, so these are among the other studies that I can find in the area of academic writing that use appraisal system. And then since the paper predominantly deals with the negotiation, so engagement system will be the focus, though the other system will be considered. Yeah. Okay, engagement system, the negotiation of attitude. The engagement system deals with all those locutions which provide the means of authorial voice to position itself with respect to and hence to engage with the other voices and alternative position construed as being in play in the current communicative context. So this is how the writer position his or her own stand, his or her own language among the other possible position, among the other possible ideas which may be in line or against his or her own idea. Yeah. So there should be a negotiation. Yeah. All clause, this is the thing that from appraisal system, that the belief that all clause, either monoclause or heteroclause, are stanched or attitudinal, and in some way construed for the text a heteroclasic influence of the prior clause. So a clause that exists now is considered as has the influence of the clause existed previously, either in line or against, or either it just in other position. So always there is no new clause. The clause is always kind of the one followed the following from the previous clauses. Yeah. Okay, and then as I said, that there are two types of clauses: monoclasic and heteroclasic clauses. That in clause in monoclasic, the writer is originator and the source of the assertion, or we call it bare assertion. Yeah, there is no other voice the writer refers to. So it is the writer, it is the speaker, if it is in the spoken language. Yeah, monoclasic clause are realized by bare assertion. Though it is bare assertion, but there might have an effect to dialogic positioning that according to Martin and White is so complex. So not just bare assertion is one's position of the writer, but it could be referring to other. Yeah, okay. And then the effect may include the proportion is that something is taken for granted, or it is something that under debate. So the effect of bare assertion can be something that as it is, something that taken for granted, or something that maybe other people may have other opinion. Okay, as we said that I concept on a heteroclasic clause, that heteroclasic clause consider particular arrangement of other voice and or alternative viewpoint, open a space for dialogue. So this is the way a writer or a speaker try to share their responsibility of the proposition being exchanged to other body. Okay, a heteroclasic clause can be categorized into dialogically expansive and dialogically constructive. So can be expanding to other possible voice, or try to close other possibilities that the writer just concerned on the his or her own argument. Yeah, so there are two types. Yeah. In dialogically expansive, that opens up the possibility to negotiate, consists of two: entertain and attribute. In entertain, the position is considered as one among the other position available. So if the writer use entertain, so it means that she or he understood that his position or her position is one among the other possible position that they may negotiate to each other. Yeah. So something like, I assume that blah blah blah. So in this say, I assume means that this is in just the writer or in the speaker assumption. Other people may have another different assumption. Okay, so one among the other choices. Yeah, and in attribute, the clause relate to the internal relate the internal outer voice to the proportion of the external sources. So it is my word, but I refer it to the word from other people. Yeah, and then it deals with two things, and it's divided into acknowledge and distance. In acknowledge, the locution do not overly stand on any external position, as in the example, Angleton defined literature as fine art because blah blah blah. So the writer will use acknowledge. It means they acknowledge the other voice, while the distance, the locution act as an explicit detaching of the attribute proportion of other. So it seems that it is different from the other. Okay, yeah, and then next. Monoclassic and heteroclause. I mean, in dealing with these two types of clauses, in defining whether one clause is heteroclause or one is monoclause, context plays a very great role. Yeah, in the sense that, as I said in the bare assertion previously, that the bare assertion is a bare assertion, but the meaning can be negotiable. Yeah, okay. And then also for the use of reported speech, sometimes reported speech is used in dialogue with others that imagine reader for constructing or expanding the dialogue. So reported speech can be used for either opening up the dialogue or just close the dialogue. Yeah, okay. And then as I said, the context. So sometimes the communication needs to know, to understand the communication, we have to we need to know the context where the communication happens. Yeah, okay. And this is the system of appraisal, and we can say that from the left to the right, it becomes to go more detail. For example, in the first arrow, we have a so-called clause called heteroclasic clause. This can be contracting, can be expanding, and it is divided into two, and so and so. So if we go to the right, it means that we go to the more detailed one in the analysis, especially. Yeah. Okay, and then the data for the present paper, I took it from some paper, some thesis written by especially my student under my supervision, and all of the theses are written in traditional style. That is, it starts from introduction, literature review, methodology, finding or result, and discussion, and conclusion. Okay, so this is what's so-called traditional type of academic text, according to Dong, and also here I quote Palfridge. And then I do the text analysis, and especially for analyzing appraisal system, as I follow from Martin and White, that the resources for appraisal can be stated there explicitly, we should infer it from the context. Yeah, so it's very free in doing the analysis. Yeah, okay. And then the focus is on heteroclasic clause, though I mentioned also the monoclasic, but I focus on the heteroclasic clauses. Yeah, okay. In the case of the analysis, especially in analyzing the thesis, we usually choose the only three chapters: introductory, review of literature or literature review, and then finding and discussion. Because in these three chapters, usually the argument are developed. On the other chapters, usually just kind of describing what happened, something like in the methodology. In the methodology, they describe the method used in the research. Though there is usually also argument for how you should choose certain method other than the other. Based on the analysis, in general, indicate that select chapter employ the combination of monoclose and heteroclose. So this is the finding. So they use in the subjective and in the subjective. However, it seems that they do not use appropriately based on the context. And then in general, they are more descriptive than arguing or developing an argument. This is the finding. This is an example from an introductory chapter, and there are 4 monoclosic clauses at the beginning of the paragraph and followed by 2 heteroclosic clauses. This monoclosic clauses doesn't really work as it is, as the beginning of the clause, the beginning of the paragraph should present the claim or present the way how we start with an argument. From the above example, the 3 function of introductory chapter doesn't really seen in the text. Bare assertion dominate the paragraph without any clear argument development. So the thesis statement, for example, there is not there. This example from literature review also similar to the previous one, that it uses heteroclosic clauses, but it seems that it doesn't really function as it should be. So we can see that the heteroclosic contract, proclaim, endorse, it doesn't really state the beginning of an argument, a right argument, and also that the rights will be something not really in that they shouldn't be there. One other finding from the analysis is that certain writers usually use a very long sentence that may not so clear with the meaning, with the proposition of the sentence. So sometimes they just write without thinking of what is the content of his sentence. And also the use of monoclosic and heteroclosic is not so appropriate from this chapter also. The literary review and conclusion, or in the case as discussion, usually challenging for certain writers in EFL context. In LL10, the claims are often made without engaging with others in the discourse community. So sometimes they just use other voices for supporting what the writer wants to say, without there is no without evaluation of what happened there. And also the use of the conclusion or the discussion usually does just summarize it, to summarize the finding of the research they have done. I mean the writer have done, without any clear argument they want to develop. And that the most student writers realized that they were not aware so much their use of language, especially considering the negotiation of interpersonal meaning. Recitation system help improve the quality of writing, the way they negotiate message. Teachers should make students realize the importance of appraisal value in the text. So this is very important. That we should train our students to realize how they use the language and how to analyze the use of language of others. This is very important. And then moreover, the study provides insight into the training process and into the function and role of the writing classes, both within and beyond the school context. Writing academic by by considering the operational resources, train students into the abstract world of grammatical metaphor, which provide them with linguistic means to talk about interpersonal meaning and about the positioning and persuading strategies necessary for social positioning of responsibility. So, by training them the appraisal resources to develop academic writing, so hopefully students will be able to take a right stance of the available position which students should stand, or they should against certain value. Okay, then pedagogic implication is that the findings are significant as they offer a linguistic interpretation of the way attitude is negotiated. So I'm sure that this is very good for training our students to develop sound argument. And then theoretically speaking, the finding contribute to more nuanced understanding of the negotiation of attitude and its potential linguistic realization. Linguistic interpretation of argument has important implication to the teaching of linguistically oriented argument construction. Okay, so this is the main goal of the teaching of this appraisal system, to make them realize that the argument should be sound, should be convincing by the use of this right use of a figurative language. Yeah. The interpretation provide insight into how textual engagement is organized and how the linguistic resources for realizing this, once visible, are available to be taught explicitly. Yeah. The employment of some SFL perspective for framing this realization has proved to be useful in the present research. Yet, other perspective or framework may afford more delicate realization. So, this is that we can say that by training students appraisal resources for developing academic writing, hopefully they will be able to develop more convincing argument, more developed argument. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, we are kind of like happy to have Dr. Widhiyanto live from Semarang, Indonesia, with us online to answer a few questions. Hello, Dr. Widhi. Welcome to iRoll 2021. And honestly, on a personal note, I'm so happy seeing you online, because the last time we met you in Longgong was in 2016.
Exactly.
Finally, we met, but just an online matter. So I hope you're doing fine, Dr. Widhi. So Dr. Widhi, there are two questions for you. So before I read out the question, I got one kind of a nice compliment from the chair of iRoll 2021, who is Dr. Kuldeep Kaur. She complimented on your very detailed research, where you analyze different theses of the student of different language background. And then she feels that your findings could give some new directions to future researcher to apply in their studies in the future. So thank you, Dr. Widhi, for the kind of like giving ways to the future researchers to look into such issue. Now, the first question, you are doing something on SFL, Systemic Functional Linguistics, and then there are views on SFL which seems to be more difficult than the traditional grammar. So how do you get your student in UNES to kind of view SFL as traditional grammar? How do they take SFL as a learning of new grammar in comparison to the traditional grammar? And number two, based on your research sharing just now, okay, it was indicated that the Asian students, okay, the Asian, Malaysian, Indonesian, we have the student issue of engaging their voices in their academic writing. So how can we go about training our students so that they can be like vocally voice out their voices in their academic writing? So those are the two questions, Pak Widi, or Dr. Widhiyanto, sorry, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Muhammad Nur Afandi or Pak Afandi, my old friend from Wollongong. Okay, for the first, the case is I think the same, that in Malaysia or Indonesia, we are trained in traditional grammar. And always in my class, because I teach also the grammar, meaning and discourse, which is trying to move from traditional to SFL, I always remind my student to be good in traditional grammar first before moving to systemic functional linguistics, especially that SFL needs was it a very good basis from the traditional one, so that the meaning can be realized appropriately. Yeah. Okay. So in my department, SFL is given in semester 6, and from the semester 1 to 5, we train them in traditional, and then we try to move from the form to function. And I always said that both are good, both are so constructive in our cognitive competence, especially in making us able to move from form to function, and how we can realize our meaning in with good grammatical or appropriate grammar. And then I see the second question is that I think it is not all just Malaysia or Indonesia and somewhere, but based on research by Dr. Lee, she did research on East Asia, like Korea, Japan, and China. Students also got difficulty in exchanging, in engaging with other in their their academic text. I think it is common for us, for our students, to just merely report their research in their thesis. And we are here in English department of Universitas Negeri Semarang still struggling. We try to even start from how we train them to develop argument in each paragraph, so that the bigger will be more difficult. So we start from the small one, and we try to train them in using both linguistics. Thank you, Pak Wandi.
Okay, thank you, Pak Widi, for your responses. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have come to the end of the fifth session of our keynote speeches. As again, I would like to thank Pak Widi for his time with us today, and for your information, UITM Melaka and University Negeri Semarang, we are actually collaborating in research in many ways. So it's indeed a good what I call connection between UITM Melaka and UNES at present and hopefully in the future. So Pak Widi, thank you very much to be with us all the way from Semarang, Indonesia.
Thank you,
and honestly, it's like I'm so happy to see you again, even though it's online. So ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of the keynote speech session for this time. So we will begin at 11:50 for parallel session 4. See you later. Thank you, everybody, and have a nice day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pak Fandi.